My mom demanded I cancel my wedding for my golden sister's feelings, so I uninvited them. And the way I turned the tables left all speechless. Nothing prepared me for choosing my own joy over their jealousy, and the shock that followed when I stood my ground. Growing up in our quaint suburban neighborhood, Cassie and I were supposed to be sisters in arms, but from our earliest days, it felt more like a competition than companionship. I remember the first time she threw a tantrum because our neighbor Mrs. Jenkins complimented my science project. Cassie stomped her feet as if my three-dimensional solar system was the worst offense she could imagine. Those childhood clashes over everything from report card A's to birthday party invitations planted the seeds of a rivalry I never asked for. Even back then, while I quietly celebrated my academic scholarships and rehearsed thank you speeches, Cassie seethed whenever attention veered toward me as though my success was a personal attack on her worth. As we grew older, our paths diverged in ways that only deepened the divide. I left home on a scholarship, spending weekends in the library and forging a steady partnership with Ryan, my best friend turned fiancé, who admired how hard I worked and how genuinely I cared. Meanwhile, Cassie bounced from one impulsive romance to another, engagements announced on a whim, broken promises strewn like confetti in her wake. I watched her rush decisions with a mix of pity and restraint, never imagining that my own carefully planned engagement announcement would become the spark she needed to fan her old resentments into new flames. Every time I shared a happy milestone with friends or family, Cassie's cool silence or sudden outburst reminded me that her jealousy was a wildfire that refused to be doused. Through it all, our mother played unwitting fuel to that fire. Instead of soothing our tensions, she stoked them, comparing our achievements, lamenting Cassie's loneliness, and suggesting she deserved a moment in the spotlight too. When I won awards or received heartfelt congratulations from relatives, Mom's sighs and sharp reminders, "Remember how hurt Cassie will feel," turned celebration into guilt. She spoke of fairness as if love were a finite resource, forcing me to apologize for my own happiness. Her attempts to even the score only drove Cassie closer to the edge, feeding her conviction that life had cheated her. By the time Ryan proposed, those early rivalries and parental missteps had evolved into a silent war over attention and affection. The moment I accepted his ring, I felt the weight of every childhood grievance and every whispered comparison. In choosing to stand with Ryan, steadfast, supportive, and proud of me, I realized that true family isn't built on envy or entitlement, but on mutual respect and genuine joy for each other's triumphs. When a sister's success feels like defeat, the bonds meant to unite us can fracture instead, leaving only the hard work of choosing kindness over competition. When Ryan got down on one knee last March, the morning light danced off his hopeful smile, and everything in me said yes, long before the ring settled on my finger. We celebrated with quiet joy, whispers of plans, dreams of a January ceremony, and easy laughter about a cozy gathering of 70 loved ones. I pictured my mother's warm hug and Cassie's surprised grin at the news. But when I called to share the engagement, Mom's response was a heavy, world-weary sigh that landed like a pebble in my heart. Instead of congratulations, she said, "Oh, Cassie's not going to like this," as though my happiness were a storm she had to brace for. I laughed it off at first, convinced she was teasing, until 2 weeks later, when Cassie crowned herself the heroine of her own fairy tale and announced an engagement of her own to a man she'd known barely 90 days. My heart sank as I read her exultant text, her self-congratulatory tone declaring that she, too, would marry in January. 3 whirlwind months later, her happily ever after fell apart in spectacular fashion when her new husband revealed his infidelity and she filed for divorce just 60 days after they said "I do." My sympathy was genuine. I reached out with kindness and a sisterly hand, but Cassie froze me out. Her unanswered texts and cold replies echoing like accusations, she blamed me for her impetuous marriage, convinced that my announcement had triggered her need to one-up me. Within our family, the blame game took off like wildfire. Mom would sigh again whenever I spoke of floral arrangements or cake tastings, reminding me how insensitive it was to be planning anything while Cassie was reeling. Cousins whispered that I was flaunting my perfect engagement like a trophy, and even family friends seemed to side with the wounded sister, as though my carefully chosen joy were a gauntlet thrown down at her feet. In those weeks, I learned that sometimes the happiest news can feel like a provocation to those hungering for drama rather than celebration. What I'd envisioned as a moment of shared delight became a battlefield of envy and guilt, forcing me to confront a painful truth. Not every family milestone comes with open arms, and not every "I do" is met with heartfelt congratulations. Sometimes it's met with crossed arms and the challenge of proving your right to be happy. By mid-November, the gentle buzz of wedding planning gave way to an unsettling hum of guilt trips and ultimatums delivered in hushed lecturing tones that cut deeper than any harsh word. It started innocently enough, Mom's first call voice soft but weighted, advising that maybe a smaller ceremony, just immediate family, would spare Cassie further heartache. Her friendly suggestion felt less like concern and more like a demand. "If you really love your sister, you'll do this for her." My chest tightened with every sigh that trailed her sentences, each one engineered to plant doubt in my mind about whether I was being a callous fiancé or a selfish daughter. Then Cassie joined the chorus, sending passive-aggressive texts dripping with pity. "I hope you're proud, planning your perfect day while I'm still picking up the pieces." Her words were barbed to provoke shame, and they worked. Suddenly, every flower consultation felt like a public display of triumph, every dress fitting a deliberate flaunt of happiness. When I refused to budge, Mom's tone hardened. "I thought I raised you better than this. You're choosing extravagance over empathy." It was an ultimatum in all but name. Either I canceled or downsized my own dreams, or I would prove myself unworthy of her blessing. Night after night, voicemails piled up like damning evidence, each one more dramatic. Cassie crying about how I didn't understand sisterly love, Mom channeling righteousness as if I'd committed a mortal sin. Meanwhile, I juggled venue deposits and RSVP counts, my excitement curdling into anxiety as I faced the impossible choice between honoring my fiancé and placating a wounded sibling. In those dark hours, I realized that guilt is the world's sharpest leash. It tethers you to obligations that aren't yours and convinces you that your own happiness is someone else's burden. Yet beneath the mounting pressure, a quiet defiance grew, an opinionated whisper that insisted love can't be held hostage by someone else's insecurities. With every demand to step aside, my convictions strengthened. This was my wedding, my celebration of 6 years of partnership, not a stage for familial dramas. By the time Cassie's exasperated ultimatum morphed into a full campaign, texts, tearful calls, even an ill-fated attempt to sway Ryan, I knew I had to draw a clear line. Because no amount of manufactured guilt, no string of forced apologies could justify putting my life on hold to heal another's self-inflicted wounds. In that crucible of guilt and grandstanding, I discovered that the most courageous act isn't cancellation. It's standing your ground when everyone else expects you to fold. Sitting in the aftermath of that disastrous Christmas dinner, I replayed Cassie's tears and Mom's scolding in my mind, like a broken record, each replay intensifying the knot in my chest. By the time the leftovers were boxed and the cousins had drifted home, Ryan and I found ourselves alone in the living room, the glow of the tree lights casting long shadows on the carpet. I looked at him, his normally steady gaze edged with worry, and confessed, "I think I need to uninvite them." He didn't hesitate. His hand found mine and he squeezed, grounding me. In that moment, 3 truths crystallized. Our wedding was meant to celebrate our love, not cater to someone else's pain. Months of planning and dollars spent on deposits and caterers couldn't be undone for an endless cycle of guilt. And if I didn't draw a line now, Cassie's vendetta would haunt every moment of our day. That night, I drafted an email in the soft glow of my laptop, fingers trembling as I wrote the opening lines. "Dear Mom and Cassie, after much thought, I've decided that for my own peace of mind and for the joy Ryan and I deserve, I must uninvite you from our wedding." I laid out the facts calmly, the repeated attempts to guilt-trip me, the rumors they spread among relatives, the emotional toll of their ultimatums. I didn't mince words, but I avoided blame, focusing on my need to protect this day from further sabotage. As I typed, "I hope you can understand this decision," my heart pounded. Was I being too harsh, too abrupt? But the weight on my shoulders told me it was the only way to reclaim my happiness. When I hit send, a wave of relief washed over me, followed almost immediately by a fresh surge of anxiety. Within hours, Mom's outraged reply arrived, accusations of betrayal and claims that I was choosing a man over my own blood. Cassie's response was shorter, but no kinder, veiled threats of regret and promises to make me look cruel in front of our extended family. I didn't respond. Instead, Ryan and I closed our laptops, sat back, and looked at the wedding binder spread across the coffee table. "This," he said softly, "is our day." In the quiet that followed, I realized the true cost of letting toxic drama infiltrate a celebration of love. The decision to uninvite my mother and sister was not a rejection of family. It was an affirmation of my right to joy, unmarred by manipulation. And as I drifted to sleep that night, I felt something I hadn't in weeks, the sturdy calm of someone who has finally chosen peace over pressure. Within hours of hitting send, my inbox erupted in a flurry of family responses, some supportive, many shocked, a few downright hostile, revealing how deeply Cassie and Mom had poisoned our relatives against me. First came Uncle Robert's terse text. "You're being immature, just let it go for the sake of family harmony." I felt my chest tighten as his message echoed Mom's old refrain that I was tearing the family apart. Then Cousin Mark chimed in via voicemail. "I can't believe you would do that to your own mother." His words stung, but they were quickly drowned out by a series of unexpected lifelines. Aunt Laura, my father's sister, called with a tone of fierce pride. "I've watched you endure their manipulations for years. Good on you for finally drawing a line." Her voice was the first to validate my stand, and it felt like a warm breeze cutting through the storm of criticism. Next, Megan, my cousin turned insider, messaged a long apology. I'm so sorry you had to face their drama alone. I should have spoken up sooner about Cassie's vendettas. I realized in that moment how many relatives had been quietly observing the chaos, unsure whether to intervene. My godmother, unfailingly practical, left a brief but powerful note. Your wedding should be about your joy, not their theatrics. Anyone who questions your decision doesn't understand the meaning of unconditional support. Her words hit like a lifeline, reminding me that true family comes in many forms. Meanwhile, in the background, Mom's outraged retort kept floating back to me, accusations of betrayal, claims that I had betrayed the very blood who raised me, but I found myself unmoved. For every cousin who echoed her guilt-tripping mantra, there were 2 friends and relatives who rallied to my side, offering to testify to Cassie's history of drama and pledging to celebrate with me only if true goodwill prevailed. Their solidarity became a shield. Phone calls turned into video congratulations, group chats filled with wedding well wishes, and small gestures, like dropping off homemade cookies on my doorstep, felt like tiny but profound affirmations of my right to happiness. In the war of words, my allies had tipped the balance, proving that when toxic voices shout the loudest, it's the quiet ones of genuine care that carry the greatest weight. And as I closed my phone that night, I felt an unexpected lightness, a reminder that sometimes cutting out the noise reveals the people you truly belong with. In those final weeks before our wedding, Cassie's tactics escalated into a barrage of provocations designed to derail our joy, and each new ploy only reinforced why I'd had to draw the line. First, there was her sudden plaintive outreach to Ryan, late-night texts, declaring how alone and misunderstood she felt, claiming he was the one person who really gets me. Point 1. Feigned vulnerability. One message read, I know we've never been close, but you always treated me kindly. Could we meet so I don't feel lost? It reeked of manipulation rather than genuine need. She'd never once acknowledged our engagement without snide commentary, yet now she cast herself as the wounded sister. Ryan, bless him, recognized the bait, immediately showing me the texts before responding. This feels calculated, and I'm not going to engage, then blocking her number, but not before taking screenshots. That brings us to point 2, boundary reinforcement. With every desperate plea she sent about loneliness, financial woes, even hints of suicidal thoughts, we quietly archived the evidence and refused to be drawn back into her drama. I composed a concise email to close family members, attaching the most outrageous screenshots and stating clearly that this only proved why Mom and Cassie had to remain uninvited. Their defenses crumbled when faced with her own words, and more relatives began to understand that my refusal to relent was neither cruelty nor stubbornness, but a necessary act of self-preservation. Finally, point 3, protective measures. We notified the venue of their uninvited status, arranged for extra staff at the entrance, and even hired discreet security guards to ensure Cassie and Mom couldn't crash our ceremony. It felt excessive, whoever thought you'd need bouncers for your wedding. But after months of emotional sabotage, we weren't willing to risk another disruption. On the day itself, when Cassie appeared at the gate with tears and accusations, the guards gently escorted her away before she could step onto the grounds. Watching her stomp off, I felt a rush of vindication. Our vigilance had protected not just the event, but our mental well-being. In the end, those final provocations weren't a sign of weakness. They were the last desperate gasps of a sibling who had lost her leverage. By refusing to be swayed by guilt, pity, or theatrics, Ryan and I preserved our day as a celebration of genuine love, proving that true peace comes not from appeasing every demand, but from steadfastly upholding the boundaries that safeguard your most cherished moments. That morning felt like a dream come true. The garden was draped in soft white ribbons, the scent of peonies hung in the air, and as I stepped out for our first look, Ryan's eyes glistened with emotion. But just 30 minutes before the ceremony, my maid of honor burst into the bridal suite, eyes wide with alarm. Cassie and Mom are here. My heart lurched. This was the moment we'd prepared for. Point 1, gatekeeping. Security had orders to hold them at the entrance, and sure enough, I heard their voices carried on the breeze. Cassie's frantic cries about being unfairly excluded, Mom's indignant protests that a daughter should never bar her own mother from her wedding day. I watched through the arched trellis as 2 guards gently but firmly intercepted them, guiding them to a discreet waiting area well out of sight. Their faces twisted with disbelief and outrage, they pounded on the gate, their words muffled but unmistakable. You'll regret this. Point 2, public spectacle. As the ceremony began with 70 guests seated in folding chairs on the lawn, a hush fell, when a faint commotion drifted from the parking lot. Cassie's sobbing apology demands, Mom's gasped declarations of betrayal. A few curious onlookers craned their necks, and I felt a ripple of embarrassment for the intrusion, but also a steely pride that our vigilance had prevented them from storming the altar. Later, during cocktail hour, whispers circulated among friends. Can you believe they actually showed up, and I'm so glad they didn't get in? Their solidarity buoyed me, reminding me why we'd taken such drastic measures to protect the sanctity of the moment, to ensure our vows were exchanged in peace, free from manipulation. Point 3. Emotional recovery. I made the conscious choice not to let their shouts overshadow my walk down the aisle. As I met Ryan beneath the arbor laced with fairy lights, I felt the tension melt away, replaced by an overwhelming sense of love and gratitude for everyone present, including the steadfast staff and guards who'd quietly fulfilled their duty. When the officiant pronounced us married and we sealed it with a kiss, the applause and happy tears of our true family and friends washed over me in waves of relief. Every photo, every smile, every toast that followed reaffirmed the lesson I'd learned: real celebration isn't derailed by drama, it's defined by those who uplift you. By standing firm at the gate, I protected not just a ceremony, but a lifetime commitment, ensuring that our wedding day remained a joyous testament to the power of love and boundaries. By the time our taxi pulled away from the venue that night, the echoes of Cassie's last shriek, "You'll regret this," had already faded into the crisp winter air, and what followed felt like the sweetest form of poetic justice. Within days, word spread that Mom and Cassie's alliance had imploded spectacularly at her wit's end. After months of defending her impetuous daughter, Mom finally snapped during a blowout phone call, accusing Cassie of manipulating everyone and demanding she grow up, and then, in a move no one saw coming, changed the locks on her own house. Cassie left with nothing but a suitcase, and wounded pride was forced to crash on a friend's couch, the very scenario she'd threatened to impose on me if I dared to proceed with my wedding. I learned all this from cousin Megan, our family's unofficial messenger, whose incredulous laughter over the phone was as cathartic as a victory cry. "Your mom actually kicked her out." Talk about karma. Everyone who'd quietly watched Cassie's campaign of guilt trips and rumor spreading suddenly saw it all unfold in reverse as the victim-turned-perpetrator found herself on the receiving end of her own tactics. Even the relatives who had once urged me to keep the peace began offering apologies. Aunt Laura sent a framed photo of Ryan and me on our first date inscribed to the couple who taught us all about boundaries and bravery. And Megan dropped off a care package with my favorite tea and a note reading, "Welcome back to sanity." As for Mom, her contrite texts pleading for forgiveness from me, chastising Cassie for her behavior, and asking if she could help her daughter find a more stable living situation fell on deaf ears. I had learned that compassion for one should not come at the expense of another's emotional safety. In the end, Cassie's desperation to control my happiness cost her the very support she'd exploited, while my steadfast defense of our wedding day earned me the respect and unwavering loyalty of everyone who truly mattered. Looking back, I realized that sometimes the most exquisite form of justice isn't delivered by courts or crowds, but by a simple act of self-preservation, standing firm in your truth until those who sought to diminish you unravel themselves. And with that chapter closed, Ryan and I can finally step into our marriage unburdened, knowing that genuine love, unlike manufactured drama, endures. Standing at the threshold of our new life, I feel a profound release from the weight of others' expectations, replaced by the steady warmth of true partnership. In defending our wedding day, Ryan and I reclaimed not just a celebration, but the right to joy untainted by jealousy. That moment taught me that love, when nurtured with boundaries and mutual respect, becomes a fortress rather than a vulnerability. I look at the life we've built: quiet mornings, sipping coffee together, shared dreams of home and family, and know that no amount of guilt or manipulation could shake the foundation we laid with honesty and conviction. The same relatives who once questioned my choices now congratulate us with heartfelt sincerity, reminding me that integrity invites genuine support while drama isolates you. If there's one lesson I carry forward, it's that yes is only as valuable as the no you're willing to stand by, and that sometimes the greatest act of love toward yourself and your partner is to refuse to sacrifice your peace for someone else's pain. If you've ever faced pressure to dim your happiness for the sake of another, share your story below, and let's uplift one another with real examples of resilience. And if you believe that every celebration deserves the space to shine free from guilt trips and ultimatums, subscribe and hit the bell for more stories of courage, compassion, and the power of choosing your own joy.